This wasn't a tantrum, and it definitely wasn't someone complaining about being rich. This was a creator realizing, in real time, that the internet she built was no longer under her control. Stalkers, break-ins, police reports, constant fear, and the worst part, none of it shocked her fans. Because when Sophie Rain finally spoke up, the internet didn't listen. It turned. Not because she was lying, but because parasocial fame always snaps back the moment you stop playing the role people paid for. Before the backlash, before the headlines, before people started picking sides, Sophie Rain was just another internet success story that moved too fast. Short-form clips, a carefully built persona, an audience that didn't just watch, it latched on. In a matter of months, she wasn't just popular, she was everywhere. And that speed matters, because when fame grows faster than boundaries, creators don't get time to figure out what parts of their life should stay offline. Sophie didn't just gain followers, she gained an audience that felt personally invested in her. And once that happens, attention stops being support and starts becoming expectation. Everything shifted the moment Sophie decided to explain herself. She wasn't flexing, she wasn't bragging, she was warning. She talked about anxiety that never shuts off, about police reports and restraining orders, about strangers knowing where she lives, and about something she couldn't undo: the internet having permanent access to her image. The message was simple: money doesn't cancel consequences. But online, that message landed wrong, because the internet heard something else. They heard a winner asking for sympathy. And once an audience feels that way, the conversation stops being about safety and turns into resentment. On the internet, there's an unspoken rule: you're allowed to struggle, or you're allowed to succeed, but you're not allowed to be both at the same time. Sophie tried to talk about fear and anxiety while openly acknowledging how much money she makes. To her, that honesty mattered. To the internet, it felt like a contradiction. The response wasn't curiosity, it was dismissal. You chose this. This comes with the job. Stop playing the victim. The nuance got crushed instantly, because online audiences don't process complexity well. They prefer clean roles. And the moment Sophie stepped outside the role people expected, her message didn't just get misunderstood, it got rejected. This is where things stop being about Sophie and start being about the audience. Parasocial fame doesn't feel like fame. It feels like a relationship, but only on one side. Fans don't just support, they invest. Money turns attention into entitlement. Support turns into expectation, and admiration quietly becomes ownership. That's why boundaries feel like betrayal. When someone pays, watches, and emotionally commits, they don't see themselves as a stranger. They see themselves as part of the story. And once an audience starts believing they deserve access, any attempt to pull back feels like rejection. That's the trap. Not obsession, not hate, but the illusion that closeness was ever real. As the audience grew, the line between persona and person started disappearing. An alias here, a different age there, small changes meant to protect privacy. But the internet doesn't read that as safety. It reads it as inconsistency. Once people feel entitled to you, any missing detail becomes suspicious. The persona demands clarity. The person needs distance. And that conflict is impossible to win, because the more Sophie tried to protect herself, the more people dug. Privacy doesn't scale with fame. It collapses under it. And when control over your own identity slips away, everything else follows. At first, there was sympathy. People understood the fear. They understood the danger. But online, empathy has a short shelf life. The moment Sophie kept talking, kept explaining, kept clarifying, support quietly turned into irritation. Because once an audience feels emotionally invested, they expect gratitude, not boundaries. So concern became annoyance. Annoyance became hostility. And suddenly, the same people who defended her started accusing her of playing the victim. That's how fast it flips. Not because the situation changed, but because the audience decided they didn't like the role she was choosing anymore. What's happening here isn't rare. Sophie Rain isn't an exception. She's part of a pattern the internet keeps repeating. Any creator whose income depends on personal access eventually runs into the same wall. Streamers, adult creators, lifestyle influencers, different platforms, same outcome. The audience doesn't just consume content, they consume proximity. And when that proximity feels threatened, it turns hostile. That's why stories like this keep surfacing. Not because creators suddenly change, but because parasocial systems always escalate. Fame grows, boundaries tighten, and the audience pushes back harder. So this isn't about one woman snapping. It's about what happens when an internet model is built on intimacy instead of distance. The uncomfortable truth is that situations like this rarely stabilize. Parasocial audiences don't slowly disengage, they escalate. More attention brings more obsession, more money brings more entitlement, and more exposure brings more risk. Safety doesn't scale with popularity. Control doesn't scale with income. Once a creator reaches this point, every move makes things worse. Speak up, and you're complaining. Stay silent, and people fill in the gaps themselves. And the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to separate genuine supporters from people who feel owed something in return. That's why this doesn't feel like a phase. It feels like the beginning of a cycle that almost always ends with burnout, disappearance, or something far more serious. This isn't a warning about Sophie Rain. It's a warning about how the internet works now. Fame isn't passive anymore. It's not just views and money. It's exposure without insulation, attention without protection. The platforms reward closeness, but offer no real way to manage the consequences of it. So creators are pushed to be open, personal, and accessible, right up until that openness becomes dangerous. And by the time it does, there's no off switch. The system keeps paying you while quietly putting you at risk. Sophie Rain didn't suddenly change. The system around her did. Parasocial fame always reaches a point where attention stops feeling like support and starts feeling like pressure. And once you cross that line, there's no clean way back. Not because the creator failed, but because the model was never designed to protect the person inside it. This isn't about one breakdown. It's about an internet that rewards closeness right up until it destroys it.